Hello and welcome to the Bundesliga show, the Thursday predictions night ahead of Matchweek 33, obviously, of the Bundesliga season. We've not got long to go at all now. And obviously, as you can see, I'm joined by Peter Weiss as well over there. By the way, I've got to congratulate you today. We've got an American Pope for the first time in history, by the way. Congratulations. Probably not quite sure how you feel about that, but I wanted to give you a bit of a congratulations from then.
Yeah, if you were wondering why we're a little late this evening, it's because everybody, the white smoke always comes at the most inconvenient time whenever we have a conclave. And so I'm proud to declare that Habermas Predictions Podcast.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely. Quite a big event there. And you are right that it's kind of overshadowed the last hour or two before we record. Anyway, guys, we've got Bundesliga action, haven't we? We're not focusing too much on the Pope today, but we are focusing on the Bundesliga action. So, and obviously, so much to play for. The championship is over, but we've still got Champions League, Europa League, Conference League, and of course, relegation as well on the cards going into the last two games of the season. So basically, apart from probably 4 or 5 teams, you'd say Bayern, Leverkusen, Augsburg, Stuttgart, and probably Wolfsburg and Union. Just about every other team has something to play for. So still a lot riding on the last 2 weeks of the season. So yeah, what better place to start than probably the worst game of the weekend, in truth. I mean, what the Bundesliga were thinking when they gave this as the Friday night curtain raiser this week, I don't know. I mean, will there even be any fans in the stadium for this one? I'm not quite sure, to be honest. But anyway, I'm sure it could potentially, provide us with a good game. Certainly if Hoffenheim's last game was anything to go by anyway. Obviously, Hasenhüttl is gone, Peter. So I'm going to let you lead out on this rather, probably not the most exciting looking game, but what are you going for in this one?
I'm going for a movie probably rather than watching this one. Yes, I'm Shecky Peter tonight. Once again, Habermas Predictions Pod and Nomini Spot Padre Fides Spiritu Sanctus. If you want to watch some German football action on Friday evening, I would highly recommend watching Nuremberg-Köln. At 6:30 rather than this match itself. There really isn't much to say about this match. I don't think anybody in Germany really cares about it. I was searching for something interesting to say about it earlier today, and I ended up reading some articles on Peter Christiansen, the Wolfsburg managing director's search for a new head coach. He denies that he's committed to installing a Danish trainer, despite the fact that 4 of them. He wants a trainer that speaks some German. Of course, plenty of Danish trainers do speak German, including Bo Svensson. But I read in the Kicker, and I hope I'm trying. It was a holistische Spielexpert. That would be a holistic game expert. What on earth? He is hired. I don't know if they're going to do neuro massages and new age music in the locker room or what's going on here. But so that's the big news when it comes to Wolfsburg. Maximilian Arnold is suspended, of course. When it comes to Hoffenheim, there's some interesting news because Sandro Wagner was linked with the Hoffenheim head coaching position. That actually is probably the only thing that could get a lot of Germans interested in Hoffenheim, as if Sandro Wagner were put in charge of that. It's a home match for Wolfsburg, which means not a hell of a lot, really. Well, it's actually a great place to go check out a women's game. I've been there this year, and I'll be going there again at the end of May. So if you want to go check out the Volkswagen Arena, it's a state-of-the-art facility, and for the women's matches, it's actually quite nice. Wolfsburg have beaten Hoffenheim twice this season already in the league and the Pokal, and perhaps I'm doing that thing where I'm tipping with my heart, but I'll go ahead and predict a 2-1 victory for Wolfsburg.
Yeah, I mean, this game is almost impossible to tip, to be honest. As you say, there's very little lying on it. Basically, nothing for the home side. I mean, they could win, lose, or draw, and nothing would change, basically. For Hoffenheim, they technically need more to stay up, but let's be honest, they're probably going to be able to lose the last two and still stay in the division unless one of Kiel or Heidenheim win both of their games, which is highly unlikely. Looking at the fixtures. So, yeah, I think both teams can just kind of enjoy themselves in a way. And obviously, Hoffenheim, they did actually attack really well last week. For Wolfsburg, the season has just absolutely imploded, hasn't it? I mean, for what looked for long periods like being a really productive season has ended up being yet another poor season for them in the end, despite having a squad packed with quality. So as a result, I'm actually going to go for the opposite of you, Peter. We're going to go for a disagreement. I'm going to go for I don't know why, but I'm going to go for a Hoffenheim win here. I'm going to go for a 3-1 win, simply because I think they're playing a little bit better at the minute, but it's not really saying much, to be honest. So I'm going to go for an away win for the Hoffe to officially confirm their status with one match to spare. So let's move on to a more interesting game, really, with a lot lying on it. Obviously, Werder Bremen against RB Leipzig, currently 8th against 6th. But should the home side win, they would go level with Leipzig on 50 points with a game to spare, albeit barring a massive turnaround in goal difference, Leipzig would still hold the lead over the home side. But, I mean, this is obviously two teams in different levels of form. I still feel as though Bremen are playing pretty well. They probably should have got the win last week against Union before a kind of second half collapse a little bit in a way there. As for Leipzig, they're not playing as well, even though the first half against Bayern was extremely good. But obviously they kind of collapsed the second half and were lucky to get a point in the end, which just about keeps them in a European race. But for me, if Leipzig want to get European football, they are going to have to find a way of winning this game. I mean, we could potentially see Leipzig famously miss out on European football altogether, which would be a huge shock at the end of the day for this club that have qualified for the Champions League almost every season since they got into the Bundesliga a few years ago. So for me, I am looking at the away side, unfortunately. I don't want to be party pooper here because I know that all of Germany will be supporting the northern German club from Bremen in this match. But I just feel as though Leipzig, that they only ever fall so far, don't they, Leipzig? And I feel as though a defeat here will put them in absolute turmoil going into the last game of the season where potentially they could miss out on European football altogether. I mean, Bremen, yeah, they've not been as good in the last two games, but they've still been good enough and probably should have won both games in truth. So, but I feel as though Leipzig are going to get it. I'm going to go for a 2-0 Leipzig win. I think this game just fits them with Openda and Šeško on a bit better form. So sorry to be party pooper, guys, but 2-0 Leipzig. Peter, what are you going for?
Well, there's some historical headwinds that are blowing the way of the German Red Bulls in this one. Leipzig are actually undefeated in their last 9 league encounters with Bremen. And I was thinking back to the last time that Bremen actually beat Leipzig in the league, and it was the Rückrunde of the 2018-19 season. I remember I was actually watching that match on the old American home of Bundesliga, Fox Sports. And that was a hell of a match. Claudio Pizarro scored the game-winning goal. Somehow, at that point in his career, I think he was moving at about he was clocking in at about 15 kilometers per hour. Milot Rashica started, and Nuri Sahin was in the starting 11 for SV Werder Bremen. The last time that Bremen beat Leipzig in the league. I actually will give Bremen a little bit more credit here. I mean, Bremen have their problems now. Not only is Oliver Burke a confirmed departure after the season, but it was revealed this week that Marvin Duksch will not be approached with a contract renewal. They're going to try to sell him off this summer. Somewhat surprising news. So who do we put up front there? I mean, are we going to start Duksch? I think Njinma is hurt. So what are we going to? Is it Marco Krul and KK Top? Pardon this cat here. How about that? Leipzig, they have some injury issues, of course. Haidara is hurt. Kampel and Raum are both suspended. So I'm actually thinking this game is going to be a little bit anticlimactic. I'm going to tip a 1-1 draw. in this instance. Two teams that are banged up and have some personnel issues. I hope that I'm wrong about this, because Germans are rooting for Bremen, and we'd like to see them somehow get their way back into this European race, even though everything seems to be falling apart on the personnel front. But yeah, 1-1 seems about right, feels about right in this case.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, moving on to another interesting game on Saturday afternoon with a lot riding on it, particularly for the away side here. Obviously, Heidenheim's trip to Union Berlin. So I'm going to let Peter lead out for this one.
Well, Union have nothing left to play for. As a matter of fact, Stefan Baumgart at his presser today was strongly hinting that he's going to do some experimentation up front. This Union striker core, as you know, has been awful. And, if we have, of course, Baumgart has breathed new life into Andre Ilic, and Hollerbach still has 9 goals on the season. Lujibicic, Marin, the January transfer, he got some stuff in there too. But I think I have the feeling that he's going to go with Skaka up front as a striker in this case, because Skaka is actually from Heidenheim. And came up through the Heidenheim Academy. It's easy to forget that. And I have a bad feeling. I have a very, very bad feeling that our friend Ivan Pretanjin is going to start as well. And I don't like Union's chances when Baumgart's experimenting with the attack, auditioning a little bit for next season. Heidenheim also get Nicholas Dorsch back. I mentioned a few pods back how impressed I was with his form as of late. I think this constitutes a party pooper tip as well, given the fact that nobody really wants to see Heidenheim jump up to the top of the relegation playoff place pack there. But I'm going to go for a 2-1 Heidenheim win in this case.
Yeah, I know what you mean, Peter. It is a big opportunity for the Heidenheimers to get a win and potentially guarantee the playoff and a very outside chance of overall safety still going into the last day. As you say, Union have nothing to play for, and yeah, they don't really have much depth up front, let's say that much. I mean, the only two that have shown anything all season really are obviously Hollerbach, who's been really good, and then Ilic since January, basically. So, I mean, if they're going to potentially rotate them out, then it doesn't look good for Kiel or Bochum, let's say that much, because Heidenheim have been better in recent weeks. I mean, they didn't play well against Bochum, but a point was relatively okay for them because it kept them in that third from bottom position, which would be enough to get a playoff spot. Given obviously the Bundesliga team's record, you would still fancy the Bundesliga team simply because of the history there. And I'm going to agree with you, Peter, again, rather unfortunately, because I think a lot of people are hoping that Holstein Kiel will manage to jump up into that playoff spot. They have been the better of the 3 bottom teams for me. Definitely the most entertaining to watch and the most likable story. But I feel as though Frankie Schmidt's men are going to get a win. I don't think it's going to be as many goals as 2-1. I'm just going to go for a 1-0. I think it'll be a turgid, potentially a penalty here. I think it's going to give the Heidenheimers a win, which would obviously heap all kinds of pressure on Kiel, and it would effectively relegate Bochum as well, because if Heidenheim get a win here, then no matter what Bochum get, then they will be down effectively. So yeah, let's move on to the next game, which is again one that mostly is involving relegation teams. Obviously, Bochum hosting Mainz. Mainz, it has to be remembered, do have something to play for still. A win here would well keep them in the European race going into the last day. But obviously, it's been a long run now, 7 games without victory for them. Although they were better last week, I felt, against Frankfurt, but it's not quite hitting the heights that it was for long parts of the season, is it? As you mentioned a few times, Peter, the fullbacks, Maveni and Kachi, have really lost form at the wrong time. Defensive mistakes. Also, Bell hasn't been quite as good as well in recent weeks, and was quite poor off the bench last week. So I think they've got defensive issues, potentially goalkeeping issues as well. And obviously, Viper hasn't really provided the quality for them. So this remains a chance for Bochum to win this, even though they are going to need to win and results to go in their favour to even keep it going into the last game of the season. But I feel as though things stack up relatively well for Bochum here. They did okay against Heidenheim last week and probably were the better team, definitely. But, they needed the win and they're going to need a miracle now to stay up, basically. But I feel as though, in a way, the pressure is actually off a little bit because everyone considers them down by now. So I've actually gone for another shock here. Quite a few shocks this weekend. I've actually gone for a Bochum win. I just feel as though they are going to get something to celebrate on potentially their final Bundesliga home game of the season for a while anyway. So I've gone for a 2-1 Bochum win. Peter?
Well, on paper, you're not wrong. Both of these teams are entering this contest in horrible form. Both of them have waited 7 league rounds for their last win. And Mainz are exceedingly banged up. Bochum in the latter stages of the Heidenheim match, it did look like De Witt and Panavig were sort of hitting their stride a little bit there, and hopefully Hecking makes the correct personnel choice and gets both of them on the pitch as starters. As a matter of fact, me in Bochum tactics, I always have to freaking write it up and draw it up and all of this stuff. So, I was. I think I had, Barrow at 10. I had, okay, never mind. Screw all of that. Screw my boat. Okay. Here's the lowdown on Mainz. Here's what we're missing. We're missing all of these great players with nicknames that we have here on this pod. Dominic Hardcore and Moritz Mercedes Jens are both out. And Denny DaCosta is questionable, as is keeper Robin Zentner. Maxim Leitch, just don't know if he's going to be ready. I watched Henriksen's press conference today, and he said that he thinks Leitch will be ready. But we're going to have a very, very weak back three here. And it's serious because Stefan Bell, despite the fact that he's a hero, despite the fact that he signed this contract extension, despite the fact that he is going to be the longest, most loyal serving player in the Bundesliga after Thomas Müller's departure this in a couple of rounds. He did not look good off the bench last week, as you said. He made several errors there. Stefan Bell has 9 lives, and what's going to happen now is that Sylvan Widmer, the captain, and both of these players are players that I like. I very much like Sylvan Widmer, the Swiss international, and Stefan Bell. They're going to be forming the cornerstone of this back three. Now, getting back to my Bochum tactics board, not only do I want to see De Witt and potentially Panavig start in midfield there, who's the guy who you really need to start in this one? None other than Filipino typhoon Gerrit Holtmann. Why? Do you remember the second match day of the 21-22 campaign?
Yeah.
Holtmann scored that amazing solo goal against Mainz. That incredible, God, it was amazing.
That's how he got coined the Bochum Messi, I think, after that one. Because it was like a Messi-style goal. It was crazy, yeah.
Absolutely. So I believe that Gerrit Holtmann starts here. When Holtmann scored that goal, that was the last time that Bochum beat Mainz. And in this case, I don't know if Holtmann is good for a goal. I don't know if Boadu, who could be fit enough to start, is good for a goal. I don't know if De Witt is good for one or not, but somehow I feel like Bochum are going to get a couple here, and I'm going to go for a 2-1 win over Mainz. Watch me get proven wrong by another interesting fact. Mainz, the last 2 times that Mainz have beaten Bochum, Johnny Burkhardt has recorded a brace in both cases, in the Hinrunde and this year, and also in the Rückrunde last year. So watch me get proven wrong by that. But I am with you on this one. I'm going to go for a 2-1 Bochum win, and we have something interesting to talk about on Monday.
Yeah. And are we going to go for a hat-trick of bottom 3 winners? Obviously, for me, the biggest game of the weekend, this one, Holstein Kiel against SC Freiburg. So much lying on this game. I mean, in many ways, you could say the result of this game dictates the rest of the season, really, because, if Kiel lose it, they're pretty much gone with Dortmund away on the last day. If Freiburg lose it, then surely top four is over for them as well, because considering they've got to play Frankfurt the last day, and they probably need results to go in their favour as well, potentially. So for me, this is the game of the weekend. It's the one that all eyes are going to be on. Can the Storks get the result against Freiburg? I mean, the first point is it's a massively long trip. I think we mentioned this in the Hinrunde as well. I mean, this is literally pretty much as far as you can go in Germany, right from down on the Swiss border to right down up towards the Danish border, really. I mean, it must be 1,000 kilometers, this trip, or very close to it anyway. But the Freiburg fans who do make the trip will be relatively confident. They did beat Kiel in the Hinrunde in what was an entertaining game, as a lot of, obviously, Kiel games have been this season, where, they missed a lot of chances, but almost rescued a point at the back end from 3-0 down. So if the game's as good as that, then there'll be a lot of happy fans. But Freiburg will be confident because they do tend to win this kind of game. And also they're playing really good football as well. For me, Freiburg are playing the best football they've done all season. I think they were very unlucky not to beat Leverkusen last week. And you could say it was a little bit of a choke in the last 10 minutes, I guess, which ultimately cost them 2 points in a game that they should easily have won with room to spare, in truth. So they got to go again here. They are still fourth, let's not forget that. So they've still got it in their own hands. They beat Kiel and Frankfurt. They will be Champions League side next season. But as for the result, it's really tough. I mean, first of all, will Machino be fit? Because obviously we saw him go off. I would imagine he's going to miss the game, which means that we're probably going to see Bernhardsson and Phil Harris, who's kind of gone out of the picture a little bit in recent weeks, where, Rapp has preferred the Japanese and Bernhardsson alongside him. So I would imagine that Harris will come back in the fold for this one. Obviously, I believe, is it Remberg or Gigovic is suspended, so we might see our boy Holtby come back into the fold, which is not good news, unfortunately, for the Storks. So even though I've thought long and hard about this one, I mean, you could argue for both teams. Obviously, Kiel have done the unthinkable by winning the last two to give themselves hope, But I just feel as though Freiburg have got a little bit too much quality. I feel as though they'll learn from last week. And I actually think they're going to get a 3-1 away win here for the away side. Peter?
A shame that Cam couldn't join us this evening. I thought the tender trio might be reunited. Of course, I and Rory are referred to as the Three Musketeers. I refer to us as the tender trio. In any event, I was going to sort of lean heavily on him for this one because he's obviously not only a Freiburg supporter, but he is keeping a close eye on future Wolves striker Phil Harris. I think the way that Freiburg played last week against Leverkusen was just absolutely sensational. That was their best performance of the season by far, and the best that I think that they've played under Julian Schuster the entire season. So I really do like where Freiburg is right now. I think they're probably going to go with the same 11. The only changes, Atobulo is coming back in goal this week, so that's good news. And Höhle is once again fit. He could fill in for Adamu up front. Not entirely sure, but in any event, the way that Freiburg are rolling right now in terms of form, I think that they should be considered the favorites here. The Remberg suspension is quite significant for Kiel in that I don't think it's going to be Holtby who comes in to replace him, but it's going to be Magnus Knudsen. I'm joking with Rory at the beginning of the season that I didn't think there was a more Scandinavian name than Magnus Knudsen. And I was tasked with putting together a list of some transfer flops this season. And I actually really think that Knudsen is one of the worst summer transfers that I've seen. I mean, it's just made no impact whatsoever. Steven Skripski, the performance that he put in last week, those two sumptuous assists, I don't think he can do that again. And I think that we'll once again see this 3-4-1-2 from Kiel, which is total vertical kick and rush football. Freiburg will have done their homework. And I'm going to sync up with you exactly and say a 3-1 win for Die Breisgauer.
Yeah. And then moving on to the top spiel, which probably isn't really such an exciting game, really, in many ways, is it? I mean, obviously, both of these two teams' seasons is pretty much over. Gladbach could need a miracle, basically, to get Europe from here, considering it's only going to be the top 6 who qualify this season. So, yeah, Peter, you can lead out. Obviously, the main thing in this is it's going to be the title celebration for the Bavarians, number 34. But do you think that'll potentially give Gladbach the edge in this one?
Absolutely not. Gladbach continue. No, they continue to implode. The big story emanating out of the Niederrheiner camp this week was there's been a team council revolt against Czech striker Thomas Kvankara. Apparently, he and Kleindienst have been pissing on each other's feet, and Kleindienst, because Kvankara is upset that he's been forced to play on the right wing thanks to Kleindienst's arrival. He was signed by Gladbach a couple years back as the surefire replacement for Markus Thuram, and he had his moments last season, but they went for the upgrade. And now, well, that's enough about that story. Actually, when I was looking at this match, I've been covering this beat now. It'll be my 6-year anniversary soon. And Gladbach have actually surprised Bayern quite a few times. They've lost the last 3, but I was having just a ball of a time this afternoon going back over some memories. The way that most recently, of course, Gladbach beat Bayern 3-2 in February of 2023. They really beat up on Julian Nagelsmann. They beat him. You remember that January 2021 game where like half the Bayern squad was out with COVID and they had to call in.
Yeah. That was
and they won.
I remember the cup one as well. Was it 5-0 in the cup? I remember that one.
5-0 in the cup. That was also Julian Nagelsmann's side. They beat up Flick's side as well. And there was it was a 1-1 draw in August of 2022, but that was the one that Johan Sommer, before he transferred to Bayern, recorded this save record. So yeah, I mean, the romantic in you wants to say, oh, why can't this happen again? Because Gladbach have oftentimes beat Bayern in the last 6 years. And then if you really want to go back, I mean, come on, the 70s, oh man, they used to beat them all the time. I mean, they were the Vollenelf were the real heroes of German football. No. This team sucks. Seoane is on his way out. He backed Jonas Omlin to be in goal at the press conference today. I thought about you when he said that. It's absolutely not happening. Bayern are celebrating their Meisterschale win in style, and they're winning 4-1 here at the Allianz. And there will be much merriment, and there will be much rejoicing, and it will be much like the Vatican with the white smoke today. Harry Kane will be drinking beer with the Frauleins, and all will be well.
Yeah. I mean, that is since you've confirmed that, Peter, that Omlin is going to be starting. Like, I mean, for me, it guarantees buying at least 4 goals. Because let's be honest, everyone gets 4 goals against Omlin. So if Hoffenheim and Kiel can get 4 goals, and how many are Bayern going to get, really? But yeah, I mean, why they keep starting him, I'll never know. I mean, he's as bad as a keeper I've ever seen at the highest level, to be honest, really. Like, I mean, what Pereira Cardozo did wrong after that excellent little cameo he had a few weeks ago, I don't know. But anyway, that's beside the point. Maybe even Tobias Sippel can get brought back into the fold, to be honest. But anyway, yeah, I agree, Peter, that like Bayern are going to want to finish on a high, that they will fancy the chances against this weak and out of form Gladbach side, who just, the body language just doesn't look right, does it? I mean, Kleindienst barely celebrated his last minute goal, and you even wonder whether they can keep him another year, because I would imagine there will be offers as well for him in the summer, because he's had such a good season. He's a German international, maybe even the Premier League or somewhere else could be interested in a guy like him. So I'm going to go for 4-0, actually, because I just don't fancy this Gladbach side at all. I think Muller will probably start. I'll be very surprised if he doesn't start the game. He'll probably get a goal or two to kind of say goodbye to the Allianz faithful, and all will be happy again in South Bavaria. So, moving on to probably the game where most eyes will be from the neutral perspective this week. One of your kind of top four, battle between two of the Germans' top four nowadays, really, Leverkusen and Dortmund. I mean, it's two teams in opposite ends of form, and the form is definitely going with the away team, isn't it? By far the superior side at the minute. Common sense football is really helping them. They've got so many players on form. Guirassy is playing by far the best, most consistent football that he's done since he went to Dortmund. Chumbuenka is playing fantastically well too, if they can get him fit for this game. Even Gitten's got a start again last week after being left out in the cold largely under Kovac. But all things are looking bright again for Dortmund, and even though the top four is out of their hands, they will fancy getting into that top four. So it makes this a hard game to predict. As BVB Sports correctly brings up, Leverkusen have still only lost 2 games, despite receiving criticism at times this season for failing to continue the excellent standards that they set last season. They have ultimately only lost 2 games, and one of them was the second game of the season. So they've only lost 1 of the last 30 games. So it's not exactly a bad record, but clearly too many draws in the list. However, for me, all signs are pointing to the away side. And even though it probably is going to be Jabby's last game, I just feel as though the away side are just far better than them at the minute. And I really strongly fancy the BVB to go to Leverkusen and get the points here. So I've actually gone for a 3-1 Dortmund win in this one. I just really fancy them strongly in this one. Peter?
Yes, I agree. It's interesting that... you brought up the fact that Leverkusen have only lost 2, and that this is BVB Sports brings up that it's Xabi's last home match. This is not an insignificant game from the perspective of Leverkusen as a club. They have a chance to make sure that a direct financial competitor for the Champions League is almost knocked out of qualification. And Leverkusen and Dortmund, when it comes to the summer transfer market, are going to be fishing from the same pond. So this isn't a dead rubber for Leverkusen by any stretch of the imagination. The question is, does anybody care? Does anybody on this team care? Who can possibly care? And I think that there's been hints at some of the pressers this week that Xabi is going to rest some of his better players, including maybe Xhaka. They don't want to risk injury. A lot of these guys are they've got their foot out the door already. They're just waiting on Xabi's confirmation. They're waiting for the season to end. I don't see how they get motivated for this one on an individual basis. And Dortmund, we've been tipping them for weeks. We've not been wrong. Every time that we've tipped them, as a matter of fact, on this pod, they have won. There's so much good news to report, including the fact that, for German football fans, that all of these German internationals are playing well. That Felix Nemecha, that Pascal Gross, that Waldemar Anton, and Niklas Süle, and most importantly, Julian Brandt, former Leverkusen player, by the way, are playing so incredibly well. And it was Gittins who got the start last week, but it was Adeyemi who came off the bench to bag that brace. And what an incredible game from Guirassy as well. So the 3-4-3, Kovac's 3-4-3, I think is unstoppable in this case. And I will mirror your scoreline exactly.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of people are going to be fancying Dortmund to win this one. But let's move on to another game where Yeah, you could say there's still quite a bit riding on this one. Frankfurt, Pauli, obviously Frankfurt going for Champions League and know that a win would mathematically guarantee it as well. And it would be the first time Frankfurt have ever qualified for the Champions League by a league position, by the way, which is an incredible stat. They've come close so many times before, but the only time they've actually played Champions League was when they won the Europa League and obviously got in that way. So this would be an achievement, and it would mark a really good season if they were able to achieve that. They don't want to leave it till the last day because obviously they go to Freiburg, who is a direct competitor as well. So this is a big game, particularly if Freiburg, Dortmund and Leipzig all win, then there will be massive pressure potentially on that trip to Freiburg should they mess up this one. As for Pauli, they could be safe by the time this game kicks off, unless one of Kiel or Heidenheim win, then they would be mathematically safe, basically going into this one, regardless of the result. So, even though both myself and Peter are tipping Heidenheim, so that would put pressure on because you don't want to go into the last day still needing a result, do you? That's for sure. But for me, I do fancy the home side here. I think they've been, the third best team in the Bundesliga this season. I feel as though it's a strong side still, even though they probably not finished maybe as well as they would have liked in some ways, particularly in the Europa League, losing to Tottenham. But I feel as though they will get over the line here. I just think, they deserve it. Nobody could argue that they will get over. Ekitike was kind of a little bit, he missed a lot of chances last week, which a win there would have all but given them Champions League as well. So they will be a bit frustrated that he missed 2 or 3 good chances in the second half. But overall, the team is still playing well. Timothy Chandler, by the way, signed another new contract today. I mean, is he going to go on until he dies or what, that guy? I mean, he might even get his one appearance of the season if they win this game on the last day, by the way. But yeah, I definitely feel as though they will get the win here. I just think they've got too much attacking quality. Pauli, it's the same old story. They fight and battle and they are hard to beat, but they don't score goals. That's the problem. And I've gone for another blank for them here in a 2-0 Frankfurt win. Peter?
Yeah, we sync up exactly again. Why do they keep paying Timmy Chandler to not play football? I mean, I don't understand why. I mean, it's already been settled that he's going to, join the coaching staff and he's going to get a certification and the club and everything. I don't know why they keep signing him to a playing contract. I don't know. Obviously, Timmy Chandler is as sacred as the Pope in my estimation. So I believe that he is a god to me, even though he may not be a footballing god. I love my mixed heritage German-American players, particularly the ones of American GI, the African-American GIs, because it symbolizes the post-war pacifist Bundesrepublik. Back to this match. I have to say, okay, so Ben Vol is going to be in goal for St. Pauli. Good luck with that. And I was talking a few weeks ago about how impressive Eintracht looked on the counter. I really think that they're a good counter-attacking team. And we didn't see that or much of any. And well, we saw some of it last week. I mean, Ekitike could have finished off a couple of counters. But in point of fact, it was Rasmus Christensen, the Danish fullback, who scored. I did look this up, who scored their 12th goal on the counter this season against Mainz last week. And St. Pauli has conceded more goals on the counter than any other team in the league. So, yes, here we have a recipe for a big Eintracht win. And I will go with 2-0 as well.
Yeah. And then finally, a game, the kind of the final straw of the weekend is going to be a game between two teams with really not much to play for, if anything to play for in this game, because both are more or less mathematically out of European contention. And yeah, this could be, it's a bit of a strange one. Again, I think the curtain raiser and the closer are the two worst games of the weekend, really, in many ways. I mean, neither have got anything really relying on them. So, yeah, this is a hard one. I'm going to let you lead out for this one, Peter, because, it really is a hard one to tip, to be honest.
Sorry, I have to unmute myself there. Stuttgart I did tip Stuttgart to win last week, and they did. And I'm going to tip them to win again this week. I think that, as a matter of fact, Augsburg have not only not won against Stuttgart during Jes Torup's tenure, they have not scored a goal in 4 matches against Stuttgart. And I think that Stuttgart, I mean, look, what's been something of a wasted season is drawing to a close now, and they're in good form. And they've beat Augsburg twice already this season, once in the league and once in the Pokal. And you have players like Dennis Undav, it was Dennis Undav who scored the winning goal in both cases. So I think that he is most assuredly back in form now. I'm going to make a real big case for the Nations League under Julian Nagelsmann at the beginning of next month. The Wolverine, Voltemada, also look. I mean, he missed that penalty, but he ended up scoring last week. He can play at 9 and 10. So can Undav, for that matter. I tip Stuttgart in this one for a 2-0 victory.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there is a little bit more for Stuttgart to play for as well, with the fact they've got obviously the cup upcoming. But the cup final in itself is a strange match, considering they're going to be such hot favourites to win it as well. But I guess, places, everybody wants to start the cup final, so definitely that probably was part of the reason why they had that improved performance and deserved win at St. Pauli last week. For FCA, I don't want them to finish the season on a low, because obviously they do have a habit of doing this, actually, like finishing the season on like 4 or 5 match losing runs. And if they lose this one, then there's a high chance it'll happen again, because they were very unfortunately beaten last week in a game I actually thought they played well in against Kiel. And I mean, it just proves what a weird game football can be sometimes, because you think, you lose 3-1 at home to Kiel, you must have been terrible, but they really weren't at all. And they created so many chances. But yeah, they are in danger a little bit of finishing the season on a low point. They have lost the last 2, and this will be 3 defeats in a row should they lose this one. And I am going to agree. I don't think it's going to be a great game, but I've gone for a 1-0 for Stuttgart. I think they will just nick it. But ooh, there you go. Yeah, it's not going to be a fantastic game, this one, but it should be another win for Stuttgart, which would lift them up into the top half for the first time in quite a while, actually, as well. So, they could potentially end up with a top half finish after all. So, yeah, that just about concludes everything for the weekend. So if you have a look at the table, would be Bayern Munich potentially extending the lead to 11 points. Not that it really matters at all, to be honest, but also Frankfurt confirming Champions League as well, and Freiburg staying just about ahead of Dortmund going into what would be an incredible last day with 3 teams still in Champions League contention, including Leipzig somehow would remain in contention should they beat Werder Bremen. The rest of the teams would be out of contention. Mainz, Stuttgart, Bremen and Gladbach would effectively lose their opportunity to go into Europe via the league next season. And as for the relegation, though, it would be quite hot, even though Kiel and Bochum will both be relegated this weekend, which seems so harsh, particularly on the Storks, doesn't it? But football is what it is. But it would lead to a very interesting final day with 3 teams still in the race for the playoff spot, with Heidenheim on 29 and Hoffenheim and St. Pauli both on 31. So who knows, the miracle of Hoffenheim playing in the playoff could still be alive going into the last day, should our predictions be correct. So don't forget, guys, to check out our latest vlogs as well. We had the fantastic one from Kaiserslautern that's still up on the site. So check that out. Don't forget that also the one from Nuremberg's 125-year anniversary will be going live probably tomorrow as well. So don't forget to check that out as well. We will be back. It will actually be Tuesday this week when we'll be back as well for the weekly show due to my unavailability on Monday evening. So yeah, join us again on Tuesday for the review for match week 33. Enjoy your football, guys. There's so much to play for, and we'll see you again next midweek. See you then, guys. Bye-bye.